In the last video, we talked about a preliminary version of Frege's view. According to that preliminary version, for any declarative sentence, that sentence is a name that refers to either true or false. That is, we can treat the sentence as a name that refers to either true or false. And whether it refers to true or false is determined by the reference of its parts and how they relate to one another. So look up here. We have Clark flies and we have Superman flies. The truth value of Clark flies, which is to say what Clark flies refers to, whether it refers to the true or the false, is determined by the reference of its constituent expressions, Clark and flies, and how they're put together. Well, this is put together in subject-predicate form. So if Clark refers to an individual, then that sentence is true if flies refers to a feature that individual has, and it's false if flies doesn't refer to a feature that individual has. And the same thing goes for Superman flies. Now, here's the objection. Clark and Superman, in fact, refer to the same person. So by this principle here, B, S4 and S5 have the same reference. They refer to the same thing. Now, it follows that for any two sentences, if they differ only in that one contains S4 as a part and the other contains S5 as a part, then they have the same reference. So why is that? Because since Clark flies and Superman flies have the same reference, if you stick them in two sentences that are otherwise equal, those sentences are bound to have the same reference. So take S6 and S7. Lois and Lois have the same reference. Believes and believes have the same reference. True and is true have the same reference. So if S4 and S5 have the same reference, then S6 and S7 must also have the same reference. So now we say S6 and S7 differ only that one has S4 and one has S5. So it follows that these two sentences have the same reference. That means that if S6 is false, then S7 is also false. But here's the problem. It's just wrong, right? Lois believes Clark flies can be false, even if Lois believes Superman flies is true. So what do we do with that? Well, Frege says, let's add a sort of addendum to A here and say, yes, S is a name that refers to true or false. And then we can say, unless S is a constituent part of a certain sort of larger sentence, in which case S doesn't refer to true or false, it refers to its sense. So Clark flies refers to true or false, but when you embed Clark flies in this bigger sentence, then Clark flies will refer to its sense. Same thing with Superman flies. It refers to true or false when it's by itself, but when you embed it in this bigger sentence, it refers to its sense. Now, this is actually not quite right. We'd have to elaborate a bit because it's not just any time you stick a sentence in a larger sentence, it refers to true or false. It's in particular circumstances like inside belief clauses. Now, let's look at an example here to illustrate the idea. You have Lois and she says Superman flies, and suppose she doesn't yet know that Lois and Clark are the same guy. And Jimmy Olsen does know that, and he says Lois believes Superman flies. And then he reasons, sentences always refer to their truth values. For any sentence, its referent is the function of the reference of its constituent parts. So if Clark and Superman co-refer, then S4 Clark flies and S5 Superman flies co-refer. S6 and S7, Lois believes Superman flies and Lois believes Clark flies. Lois believes Clark flies and Lois believes Superman flies differ only in that one has S4 as a constituent where the other has S5. So S6 and S7 co-refer. S7 is true, so it follows that S6 is true. That is, it follows that Lois believes Clark flies is true. But when Jimmy Olsen says Lois believes that Clark flies is true, he notices that Lois disagrees. She says Clark doesn't fly. So what's he going to do? He's going to say, well, look, Lois isn't crazy, so some aspect of my reasoning must have been wrong. And here's what it is. Inside propositional attitude clauses, that's like when you say I believe, which in effect, when you utter something, you're saying I believe it. Inside propositional attitude clauses, sentences refer to senses, not to truth values. So inside S6 and S7, S4 and S5 refer to their senses. They have different senses. That is, Clark flies and Superman flies have different senses because the description associated with Clark is not the same as the description associated with Superman. So S6 and S7 can have different truth values. So now we have this view and this objection, and we come back to the objection. And what we do once we qualify this and say a sentence is a name that refers to a truth value unless that sentence occurs in a larger sentence, in which case sometimes it refers to its sense. Now 3 will no longer follow. And we can then get rid of 5 and so get rid of 6. Now we can have another objection which says Clark and Superman co-refer, and from that it follows that S8 and S9, I don't know why I renamed them. I think they're the same as S6 and S7. But S8 and S9 have the same reference. So S8, if S8 is false, then S9 is false, but we just do the same thing. We just say the truth value of a sentence is determined by the reference of its constituent expressions unless that sentence includes a certain sort of clause, in which case S refers to true or to false. Which it refers to is determined by the sense of the constituent expressions that are outside that clause and the sense of that clause. Okay, so we can cross out this inference here and we get a solution to the problem. This raises the question, what sort of clause? And Frege doesn't give us a good answer. We know propositional attitude clauses, words like believe, hope, fear, desire are going to indicate such a clause, but we don't know the sort of full range of such clauses. We'll stop this video there and continue next time by talking about what is the sense of a sentence.